don't know. Sometimes when I question if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm on the right path or if God is really like there, it's like I just remember like his faithfulness and like the gifts that he's given me, because there's just no way, like there's no explaining all of these things away. I don't know, it's really mind-blowing, and I'm mind-blown every single day still that I get to be here and like I have the gift that God's given me.
Well, hey, my name is Matt Poole, and this is Unapologetically Catholic, the show where I talk about the reasons why I am unapologetically Catholic and think you should be too. And this week, I have another guest. I have Gemma in the Rough from Instagram joining me tonight. So thank you for being here, Gemma. Well, yeah. I guess I could call you that. She's your patron saint, right?
Yes, she is my patron saint, and that's who we're talking about, so that works.
Yeah, perfect. Well, so I reached out and said, because you had posted on your Instagram stories that Saint Gemma had found you, and I have a very similar story with my patron saint, Saint Patrick. And then being an OCIA, people will ask, oh, how do you know who your patron saint is? How do you decide? And I have heard this story over and over and over again, that your patron saint tends to find you versus you going out and seeking your patron saint. So I'd love to hear how Saint Gemma became your patron saint.
Yeah. So really the story starts as like I was in RCIA, and in that conversion process, you obviously get to pick a patron saint. And so we're in the middle of it, and we're talking about the saints, and our priest brings up that you can pick a patron saint, but you don't have to, but like some people choose to. And so for some reason I took that really seriously. I was like really determined to like find a saint or like a devotion, just something that like really stuck to me. And I heard these stories of people choosing saints based on patronages or their birthday. And I was like, well, I am not going to do that. Like, I'm not just going to like look up a saint and pick it because that is who I want, because I don't know. I wanted to feel really connected. And so I started learning about the saints, and I had learned about a couple saints before RCIA, but nothing until we really got into it is when I started like investigating. And so I started learning about the saints basically just to pick a patron saint. And the problem was that there are so many really good ones. And there were so many that I liked. And so this kind of became a thing. Like on my social media, I was sharing my conversion journey. I was going live on TikTok, and like people were coming in and asking me questions. And it was like really fun for me to like share my experience and like get feedback from other people. And so it kind of became a thing that like everybody was asking if I had picked a patron saint yet. And so this had been weeks. I was talking to people in my real life about it. Somebody sent me a book. It was a children's book. It's a picture book of stories of the saints. Just like overviews of all the saints. And then he was like, what's the saint that you're like really interested in? And I was like, I like really like Saint Francis of Assisi. So he like sent me a book of Saint Francis of Assisi. So all these people started sending me all these saints. And on TikTok live one night, I was like, I haven't picked a saint. I'm just not going to pick one. There's too many good ones. I don't want to just pick one. Like, I'm not going to choose one. It's going to be fine. Like, nothing ever just felt right. And again, I'm probably taking this way more seriously than it has to be. Like, it's a big deal, but it's like not that big of a deal, right? It's not required. It's just a tradition. Like, a lot of places don't even have patron saints or confirmation saints. I don't know if they're the same thing.
I don't know.
I hear back and forth.
Yeah. I think it's, well, so I think it's weird for people. It's almost like a sponsor for someone who comes into the church as an adult. Like I've heard, I said it myself last night at OCIA because people were asking me, what's a sponsor? And I said, well, it's basically like a godparent, but you get this person when you're an adult. And so it's the same thing with patron saints or confirmation saints. I think it's like, well, if you're above the age of confirmation, but you're coming into the church, is it a patron saint? Is it confirmation saint? I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm on this quest. I'm on a TikTok live one night. Someone's like, have you picked a saint yet? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to pick a saint. There's too many good saints. I love so many of them. I can't choose. And so people in the chat start sending me saints to look up. They're like, oh, well, have you looked up this person? Have you looked up this person? What things do you like? Like, whatever. And so I open up a Word doc on my computer and I start typing all these names down. And I was like, okay, like I'll look them up. And I probably wrote down 15, 20 saints. Like people were really throwing them out there. Like, look at these. And so I spent the next, I don't know, maybe that weekend or something. I was in school at the time, so I didn't have a lot of free time on my hands. And I open it up whenever I had time. And I start Googling all of these saints because most of them I hadn't heard about. Because I was really still unfamiliar with a lot of like traditions in the Catholic Church, including the saints. And so this was like a whole new world for me. And so I start reading articles and finding whatever information. And I can't even remember. I think I still have this document around there somewhere. It's like on my desktop. But Saint Gemma was on there. And when I had seen that name come across, I didn't like blow it off, but I didn't think too much of it because I had heard about her before because I think like my priest had mentioned her when we were talking about like different saints. Like we were just like, oh, name a saint. And it was that. And I had like briefly read about her at a time, but it was never when I was like seriously looking into it. And so her name was on there and I didn't think twice about it. And so she's probably like number 8 on the list. And I was going through all these other saints I was reading about. I'm like, nah, not the one. And I read Saint Gemma and I come across her story and I really resonated with a lot of just the things that she went through in life. And not in a like I went exactly through the situation, but it was like it was close enough that it was kind of weird. And what I was reading was she passed away when she was very young. She was 25. She died on Holy Saturday. And so to become a saint, you have to live a pretty magnificent life, you know, in those ages. And so I was reading and her parents had passed away at a really young age. She lost a brother at a really young age, and this is due to illness. She was alive in the late 1800s, died in like 1903, I think. So it's around that time where people are dying of tuberculosis mostly. And so her mom passed away at a very early age, and then she lost her dad shortly after, and she lost her brother. And my parents divorced. And so I didn't lose my parents in like a physical way where they were no longer alive on earth, but I felt like I was grieving a lot in my childhood because of that loss of their marriage. And just really struggling as a child. And the more I read about her, it just talked about how amazing her faith was as a kid. And I would connect this back to my story of like, I did not grow up in any religion at all, but I loved going to church. I like got really involved in church on my own. And it was I annoyed the crap out of my parents growing up because I wanted to go to church every Sunday and like they wouldn't take me. And so just seeing things like that where they almost thought that she was like too devout and too serious. And I felt like I had felt that a lot growing up. I also lost my stepsister when I was a senior in high school. She passed away in a car accident. And so just seeing these like little things interwoven, finding out she went to live with her aunt and I had also lived with my aunt at one time. It was just a lot of life circumstances that were very similar. And I was like, that's really strange. And I was like, maybe this is the one. And I was thinking about that, but I was like, well, I don't want to commit yet because like, what if there's somebody else? And this is like spring, probably February. And I'm set to come into the church at the end of March of 2024. So we gotta hurry it up. But I wasn't ready to commit because there were still so many saints left to learn about. And so I kind of put her on the back burner. I talked to my friend the next day, actually the one who bought me the books about the saints and St. Francis of Assisi. And I was like, have you ever heard of St. Gemma Galgani? And he was like, not really, why? And he had been with me in this journey. He was also on TikTok at one point. Like that's how we met and like we're really great friends. And I was like, I think she might be the saint that I'm supposed to choose. and he was like, "Oh my goodness, like tell me more." And so I started like explaining it, and he was driving somewhere to see his then fiance, now wife. And he had a really long drive, and he like listened to her whole autobiography that's written by her spiritual director, or biography written by her spiritual director. And it was so funny because at the end he was like, "Oh yeah, this is your saint." Like the way that she talks and like her humor, and she's very dry, like it's perfect. I was like, "Well, thank you." Like that makes a lot of sense. And so really like that was the start. And I remember like feeling a lot of peace about that because this was very like serious again for me to like pick a good patron saint. And I always say that like God cares about the little things, and I think he like really cared that I like picked a good saint that wasn't just based on like a patronage or a birthday.
Yeah.
But I felt really connected to her. And so I was like, okay, I think this is like the saint I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna like spend some time in prayer and like, have some peace because I think God guides me in peace for sure. And so I kind of like, I just like knew from there. I prayed about it. I felt really peaceful about it. It kind of felt that Saint Gemma was like, duh, like I've been waiting for you. What's taking you so long? You heard about me the first time and you didn't. Hello.
Yeah.
Which is very much like her. If you ever read her writings or listen to anything, yeah, she's great.
Nice.
And so it was funny because the next day I went to daily mass, and my priest who taught my RCIA class was saying the mass, and after mass he like held the door open for people. And I peeked around the corner because, he has to go to confession right after our daily mass ends. So I didn't want to keep him, but I like peeked around the corner. I was like, "Father Jacob, I think I picked my patron saint. I don't want to keep you, like, but I gotta, like, I know you have to go, but I just wanted to let you know I think I picked a saint and I'll tell you later." And he was like, "Oh, like, tell me now." And I said, I said Saint Gemma Galgani, and his jaw dropped, and he's like, "That's my favorite saint." And I was like, "Well, that makes sense. One, because you mentioned it, but two, like, I didn't expect that to be his favorite saint because she's not super well known. She's getting like more well known now, but she was pretty obscure for a while." And so that was just like a little like, I don't know, confirmation, I guess, that that was his favorite. And so that was the decision. And then of course, like confirmation, I got to be like confirmed with her name. And that was really cool. Actually, that priest, Father Jacob, was the one who did my confirmation and like got to do that. So that was just really, really cool, really special. He also guided me through my whole conversion process from the beginning. And so that was just like a really special moment. I'm really thankful for him. He's in Sri Lanka now, so please pray for him because I
Wow.
miss him so much. And so I kind of thought like that was it. I was like, this is, my patron saint. I really love her. Like, that's it. But I didn't realize how much her life would start to like continue, I guess, to line up with mine and unfold as especially as I got deeper like spiritually, not just like physical life circumstances. Oh, another thing. I said that I hadn't like wanted to pick a patron saint based off of like a patronage. But when I looked up her patronages, she's the patron of a couple things, but the two that were big for me were students, and I was in school at the time. I've graduated since then. But the really, really big thing was she's the patron saint of back pain and people suffering with back issues. She's the only one. And for me, that was really mind-blowing because I have a skeletal condition, and I had a spinal fusion when I was 16. And so I live with chronic back pain. And so it was like, oh. And I didn't know that until after I had picked her. And so I
Wow.
was like, yeah, this is mine. She's mine. And that was just like another like connection of things being woven together.
Man,
Yeah.
that's insane. So there's a number of times that I've talked to people, and it's because my story with Saint Patrick is different in some senses, but it's very similar in that same vein of I wasn't really looking for Saint Patrick. Like originally wasn't even on the radar, but there were too many things that were little small coincidences, that I just thought there's no way this is just a coincidence that there's so many little things in all kinds of different aspects of my life that are all resonating with St. Patrick and what he stood for and where he's from and all of these other things. So that, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was really beautiful. And just a reminder that like God is with me. I really, really love and appreciate the idea of like the church doesn't continue at death, but like we have this whole family like praying for us and waiting for us and as a part of the exact same church that I'm a part of. And so that really like it just kept help or it just kept help just helped kept bringing it all together. Sorry. It just like when I struggled a lot in RCIA or OCIA, whatever it's called now. But little things like that really helped me along the journey. And so I think this was just another part of that process was feeling like really seen and connected to a saint when it was, I mean, you know, a year or so prior, so foreign to me.
Yeah, that's because you were. So I know you said you didn't grow up religious, but you correct me if I'm wrong. I think I remember hearing that you had like an evangelical background closer to the time before you came into the church. Is that right?
Yeah, so I got really involved with the evangelical church as a teenager. And then especially like in my early 20s, this was all apart from like my parents. I did this. I always joke that like I had to undo the mess, my own mess, because like I got involved and really involved all by myself. So yeah, I was a like charismatic Pentecostal right before I became, well, not right before I became Catholic, but before I left and like did my own journey on.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up Southern Baptist, was Presbyterian for a little while, but I that was one thing that I really appreciated about the Catholic Church, like you were saying that when I was a Protestant, there always kind of was this maybe disconnect between the body of Christ in heaven and the body of Christ here on the earth. And so when I was studying the Catholic faith and looking into it, I thought, man, no, this is beautiful because we are like we're still a part of the same body that those who have already ran their race and they've crossed the finish line, right? And now they've been made saints. Uh, it's not like there's a division between the two. We are one, and we can ask for their help. We can ask for their intercession, and they're a part of that great cloud of witnesses that are they're watching us, right? And I don't know, that was it was like another really good added benefit of, oh, okay, there are human beings just like I am who had the same struggles as me, who walked through life, had the same kind of pains and difficulties and everything else in life, but they made it. And now they're like helping me to make it too. Um, and to pick a patron saint to be like this one saint of all of them is kind of like my buddy that I'm linking arms with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was funny too because like people like give you suggestions on different saints, and I like came into the church at a Jesuit parish. I don't know if I would be Catholic without the Jesuits. They really helped bring me in, and so people were like, "Oh, like choose Saint Ignatius of Loyola." I was like, "No, no, no! Like it can't be like that. Like I really like it has to be really meaningful. It doesn't. If you're watching this, it doesn't have to be that serious." But that was just me. And I'm thankful that I like took the time to work it out because I learned a lot in that process too, and I learned about a ton of saints in that process that I might not have like heard about otherwise. But also to touch on what you were saying about just having like this family, I had the opportunity to go to Rome back in September for the canonizations of Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati. And it was a very like last minute trip for me. I got invited like 2 weeks before we flew out, and I mean you're not going to say no to Rome, right?
Yeah.
And so just being there at the canonization mass with 80,000 people, sun blaring down, we were on our feet from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. But it was so beautiful, not because we were just like celebrating the new saints, but like I was surrounded by so many different people and different cultures and still part of one church. And then I was seeing these buildings and statues of the people that have gone before me, I'm like, oh, these aren't just like stories about people that you hear. Like this is my family, this is my church, this is my history now too. And it was just like, I don't know, a beautiful reminder of how big and long lasting the church is, and of all the people that have gone before us, and how the people that are praying for me have like walked these streets that I'm on right now. It was just really like a big full circle moment for me, and a big reminder of how much I love the church and how much I love the saints.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that so I've not been to Rome. Maybe hopefully I'll get to go one day.
Yes.
But so I've not been, but it I can even see it in my own parish. And you, as your time in the evangelical church, you may have experienced this a little bit, but it seemed like there was a time where I went off to college in a different town, and so I hopped around a bunch of churches trying to find the right Protestant church to go to, and every single one of them, you could tell, like the Southern Baptist Church there was a very distinct group of Southern Baptists. The Methodists all had a very specific group. Presbyterians had a specific group, just people that think a certain way, or maybe their socioeconomic status was the same. Then you get into the Catholic Church, and even at my parish, there's people who are like a janitor, and then there's people who are doctors, and there's people who are
Yeah.
lawyers, and there's salespeople, and it really is. I don't know. I do really appreciate how. I mean, the whole like one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, the church being one and universal, even in my little country parish down in the southeast,
Yeah.
I see it, and I don't know, it yeah, it's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it really is. And it was like a gift. The saints are a gift, and they were a gift, especially like when I was coming to the church, because we didn't have that in the non-denom world. Um, we didn't really even know what happened to us after we died. It was like, do you go straight to heaven? Is there soul sleep? Are we waiting? And then, you never knew what was going on. And so, I don't know, it was really a good thing for me. It was never really something that I struggled with. Asking for intercession was never anything that I struggled with. It just like made sense to me. And not everything else, everything else did make sense to me, but like that was just something that was never a hang up for me. Were the saints, which I'm very grateful for, because I had a lot of other things to work through. But then like, especially after my confirmation, as I was in the church, and my problem was that I took like 6-ish years to convert, from the moment that I started to the moment that I was confirmed, which is a really long time. And so during that whole time, like I'm working towards something, I'm like studying and researching and like doing all the things to make sure that I'm prepared. And then for a really long time, and then it's done. I'm confirmed, I'm in the church. And then it's like, what do I do now? I don't have anything to like work towards. I mean, maybe like figure out my vocation, but like I don't have anything to like work towards like actively this minute. And I like really resonated with Saint Gemma in another way, because she lived such an ordinary life. And like she was really faithful in the small things. She was really ill as a child. She really wanted to join an order, but it just never worked out for her because of her sicknesses. She wanted to join the Passionist order, which I'll probably touch on in a bit. And they would have gladly welcomed her in, but they just like couldn't, because she was so sick. And so she had to find ways to be faithful outside of where she felt like she was called. And just like the little things. And she loved Jesus so, so, so much. She loved Jesus so radically. And so that really inspired me. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to love Jesus so radically. And I don't have to worry about figuring a doctrine out, or deciding if I believe that, Our Lady is sinless, or if the papacy is real. Like, I'm already in. Like, I trust the church. I'm going to trust her, and I submit to that. And that's a whole nother thing that I love about the Catholic Church, is I don't have to like decide what I believe anymore. I just trust the church. But it was like, so what do I do now? And it was like, I just want to learn how to like surrender my life and love Jesus like this. And so that's what I have tried to do really since then. I'm definitely not perfect at it. And another thing that was really radical in my confirmation was how the Catholic Church views suffering, the idea of like redemptive suffering. And if you want to know about suffering, read about Saint Gemma. Because like I said, she's the patron saint of back pain because she dealt with spinal meningitis, I believe. She dealt with a lot, and there's not good healthcare back in the late 1800s, and so there wasn't anesthetic, and she really talked about like uniting her pain with Jesus's passion on the cross. And that idea, when I remember I was in RCIA and I heard about redemptive suffering for the first time, I don't even think he used that words, but just how we can unite our suffering with God. And like, I remember exactly where I was sitting and like the people that were in there. And it was like, because we never like were taught that in the evangelical church. And it was, if God is allowing you to suffer, it's because you're doing something wrong. And so like I said, I deal with chronic pain. And there was a time that I was like in a really bad flare up and somebody said to me, like, what are you doing to block God's healing? And so then ever since then, it really bothered me anytime that something bad would happen, because it would be like, oh, what did I do? I was so scared to like mess up. And so the idea of like radical suffering, of like uniting it with Christ's passion and to offer it up, you know, the like saying that everybody uses, it was so mind blowing for me. And that was such an integral part of my like conversion, and something I held on to coming into the church, that again, Saint Gemma, who suffered so greatly, just seeing how beautiful she did that. There's a quote that says, if you really want to love, like learn how to suffer, because suffering teaches you to love, or something like that. I wish I remembered it. But it's all about like uniting your suffering and embracing it, which was such a new idea to me, that seeing that modeled in her life and her story was really just, you know, another little thread that was poking through there. And then even with that, last year, I became really devoted to Our Lady of Sorrows, which is a very prominent part of the Passionist order that St. Gemma wanted to be a part of. And it's actually really beautiful. She's buried in the Passionist monastery in Lucca, Italy, where she was from. And she had said there will be a monastery here one day, and like now there is, and she's buried in a habit, even though she never got to officially join the order. Wow. But the story is that I think it's St. Paul of the Cross. Yeah, St. Paul of the Cross had a vision of Our Lady of Sorrows, basically saying to start this order. And it's based on meditating on Christ's passion and the 5 holy wounds of Jesus. And so Our Lady of Sorrows is such a prominent part of the Passionist order. And St. Gemma was super devoted to her. And I didn't even know this. And so to become devoted to Our Lady of Sorrows. And so this is where my saint posse, I call them, my saint posse forms. So we have Our Lady of Sorrows, Saint Gemma, and then I learned about Saint Gabriel Possenti, or Saint Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrows. He is kind of considered Saint Gemma's patron saint, and he's mentioned in one of her stories, but apparently I never got there yet because I didn't know anything about him. And so somehow I started learning about him. Oh, it was because it was on my birthday. That was one of the saints of the day, is his feast day. And so I'm reading about him and I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. There's another one. And so he was also a Passionist, and he was super devoted to Our Lady, and then was also like Saint Gemma's patron saint. And I was like, this is really crazy. All dedicated to like offering up suffering and like meditating on that. And it was just really mind-blowing for me because, again, it was like these saints that I believe are watching over me, praying for me, like really dedicated their life to suffering well. And this is something that I'm really trying to learn. And I have these beautiful examples of my friends and family in the faith going before me. And so, I don't know, just to like have all of these things together. They also say like your devotions also, you know, they pick you. And these were all things that I didn't believe. I didn't believe that the saints picked you. I didn't believe that devotions, like you do whatever, but you can't do them all. And so to have these things just like basically put into my lap and was like, here, this is what you're going to be devoted to because of what you've lived through already and where you're going to go after. I was like, I don't know, sometimes when I question if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm on the right path or if God is really like there, it's like I just remember like his faithfulness and like the gifts that he's given me, because there's just no way, like there's no explaining all of these things away. And I don't know, it's really mind blowing, and I'm mind blown every single day still that I get to be here and like I have the gift that God's given me.
Yeah. Yeah, that I absolutely resonate with that. More the well, the idea of memento mori. We've talked
Yes.
back and forth about that idea because the Protestantism that I grew up in, they wouldn't say that if you're going through some kind of suffering, it's like that you did something wrong, but there was always this air of maybe it just I don't know. It's almost kind of like, well, bad things happen. Like nothing on this earth will be perfect till, one day we'll
Hmm.
be in perfection in heaven. But
Yeah.
that it's just we live in a fallen, sinful world, and that was kind of the end of it. And I always felt like I don't know, there has to be more. No one ever painted it as a picture, intentionally tried to make it seem like, oh, bad things happen and God is just kind of sitting up there like, well, sorry, but that was the mentality behind it, or at least that's how I perceived it, I guess.
Hmm.
And so then to come into the Catholic Church and read the lives of the saints, I've not read much about Saint Gemma, but yeah, I'm absolutely going to now because there's a lot of that I think, I've had as I think everyone have had really rough experiences and bad negative things happen in life, and to be able to say, okay, well, this isn't just a part of life or something that happens and you just kind of have to put up with it until you reach heaven. To
Hmm.
be able to say, no, Christ suffered on the cross so that redemption could be possible for everyone.
Hmm.
Uh, and you can take those sufferings that you are going through and unite those with Christ's suffering, and to be able to have some sort of part in his suffering, to be able to take your suffering and unite it to Christ. Uh, I don't know. For me, that is such a beautiful thing, because then I don't. Not that bad things are good or that you want them around, but like instead of going, oh, I have this bad situation, I need to hurry up and get away from it, just sitting and saying, okay, like obviously, God, please give me relief or take this away. Uh, but if you choose not to, and if for whatever reason I need to continue to endure this, I, at least help me to unite it to your suffering and help me to, like you said, offer it up. And I don't know, it makes the suffering not easier to endure, but maybe more worth it. You know what I think that's a
Yeah,
good way to put it.
for sure. And also it's allowed me to like reframe the idea of, because I know I had said, oh, it's like, what am I doing wrong? Like if God's allowing me to suffer, but it's changed. It's been a mind shift for me of like, what can I learn from this? Like, what is God teaching me in this moment? And also, like, we said a lot in my old church, there's no growth inside the comfort zone. And I think that that applies here too. Like, if everything was easy and everything was like, you know, there was no suffering in our Christian walk, which we know we're going to experience anyway. We see that in the scriptures. But if it wasn't like, why why would I need to depend on God? Why would I need to recognize that he is greater than what's in front of me if everything's great? Like, where would that dependency need to be? And so having that idea, and also like we're refined by fire. And so sometimes you have to go through it to get, and like I look back now at things that I didn't want to go through, and I recognize like God's faithfulness in the midst of that and what it taught me for the future. And obviously not every situation is great, and I wish that they didn't happen, but there's always something there. And if there's nothing else there, I can unite it to Christ, because he suffered more than any of us will ever in this life. And so, like, if nothing else, he's still there, even in the bad. But yeah, just like you were saying, it just gave me something to hold on to in a place that like before was really like touchy because like I said, I deal with chronic pain. There's other stuff in my family that's going on, and I always question like why, what's good of this, you know?
Mm.
But like there is. It probably looks crazy to people that don't understand like the idea of redemptive suffering and don't understand the like peace and hope that we have in Jesus. But like it is so beautiful, and you hear about all these stories of saints that go through terrible things, horrific, you know, deaths. Saint Gemma, Saint Carlo, so many, but are so peaceful and still love Jesus throughout their suffering. It's so inspiring to me. It reminds me that, you know, if Saint Gemma can get through a spinal meningitis without any anesthesia, I can probably like get through having to wake up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it helps put things in perspective. Okay, I didn't know that about Saint Gemma. You had mentioned that she tried to enter into a religious order,
Mm-hmm.
and that's is it Saint Cabrini? Saint is it Francis Xavier
Francis
Cabrini?
Cabrini, yeah.
Um, she so that I think it might be the same book. My wife and I have a bunch of young kids, and so every night we read a story of a saint out of I think the book is called The Story of the Saints.
Yeah.
And
I
it's a
think it might be
little
the same book that I
yeah.
received.
There's a picture of Saint Francis of Assisi on the front, and I think
Mm-hmm.
somebody who well I can't remember if the illustrator was I want to say they used to work for Disney or something. Maybe I'm confusing books, but
Yeah.
anyways, it's like little short 2-3 page stories. And just a few nights ago, we read about Saint is it Francis Cabrini?
Yeah.
Am I saying? Okay. And talking through how like she wanted to join a religious order too. If I'm I read a saint story every night and we read a different one. So I may be like blending them together, but I think I've got my story straight. And I know there's a couple other saints who had this same desire to be a part of a religious order, or like you said, that people maybe were saying, "Oh, you're too overzealous. You need to relax a little bit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
stop taking it so seriously." And I
Yes.
think for me, that's really encouraging because well, it's part of the reason I called this podcast or this show Unapologetically Catholic, because coming from a Protestant background and now being Catholic, sometimes I see people kind of maybe take the faith nonchalantly, and it's like, man, do you not realize what you have here?
Yes. For sure.
Yeah. So, and I love to hear how some of these saints really desired to know. I want to devote my life to Christ in this way by joining this order, and then maybe getting some pushback, but continuing to persevere. But I think you said Saint Gemma, she never entered an order. Is that right?
Yeah, she was too sick. She couldn't sustain religious life.
Yeah. But even still, like the persistence in that area helps to point to the persistence that I mean, if we, like scripture says, if we persevere until the end, we will be saved. And so that doesn't necessarily apply to joining a religious order, but you can take that same mentality and that same kind of push and drive that somebody has to join a religious order and apply that to your everyday life, like persistence in prayer or persistence in how you love your neighbor or various things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. I think so too. Like she wanted to join like the Passionists who are devoted again to the Passion of Christ,
mm,
suffering, all the things. And since she couldn't, she basically just like committed to doing the best that she could, even so. And I feel like that also resonates with me because there's all these things that I wish I could do, or like I have these big ideas of how I could make a difference, you know, in the world or in the faith. But like realistically, like I can't do all of those things, especially like not right now. But I can be faithful in the small things too. I can, you know, smile at the person on the street. I can have conversations with people that might not get a lot of conversations. I can serve. the people in my parish. I can serve the poor. Like we do all these different little things that I have opportunities to like show like Christ working in me and like giving up part of myself to like serve other people, not in the same way that like an order would require me to or like have me do, but I can still be faithful in the ordinary too. My friend has a account called Faith in the Ordinary, and I feel like this is very like similar to that of just like showing up and being faithful where I can with the limits that are placed on me, whether that be because of family things or like my job, my life, whatever. I can't do all the things, but I can show up the best that I can right now. And like loving Jesus and serving him is enough. I don't have to have a title. I don't have to have, I don't have to be in an order tomorrow to make a difference right now.
Yeah. Yeah, as you were talking, I just thought my wife, her, she came into the church actually a year ago this month. So yeah, when she came in, she picked Saint Zélie, or Zélie.
Zelly? Yeah.
I don't know the right way to pronounce. I'm really
It's
bad with
okay.
pronunciation. But she bought there's a picture of Saint, what was her husband's name? I'm blanking.
Lewis,
Yes.
right?
And Zélie, and then Saint Therese of Lisieux was their daughter, one of their
Right.
daughters.
Hmm.
And I went through this period briefly where I kind of thought like you did, like, man, I need to do big things. What am I doing? What if I want to be a saint? And you hear some stories of some of the saints who have really big, drastic things that they do. And I kind of kept looking out and thinking, oh, what can I do here? Where can I go to do this? What kind of big thing can I do out in the world? And then she bought this picture, and I just, sometimes there's, not that like the saints talk to you through pictures, but like you see a picture of a saint and there's something that just pops into your mind. And for me, I remember there was one time where there's a little flower with Saint Therese in the picture because that's her thing, right?
Hmm.
And I remember just thinking, the kids were all being insane. Life was hectic and crazy. And I remember thinking something along the lines of, yeah, but what are you doing with what you've already been given? And it was like it was a bomb dropped on me. And I thought,
Hmm.
holy cow, that's, maybe I'm looking in the wrong places. Like maybe I need to look where I am right now. Like like you're saying with your work, are you doing the work to the best ability that you can, like the skills, the talents, and the abilities that you've been given when you
Hmm.
clock in for your 9 to 5? Are you using those to the glory of God and for the service of others? And or with, like me as a parent, am I raising my children to be saints? So it is absolutely a temptation to look out and go, man, I need to do something grand and big and great. And you may be called to that, or you may just be called to be in your little tiny bubble and no one knows about these things. But like for me, you raise great saints, or like for anybody else, you work your job and you do an excellent job at your job, right? Uh, and that was, for me, that was such a freeing thing to think, man, I don't have to go out and find something quote unquote great to do, but I can do
Hmm.
great things with what I've already been given. And I should be doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned like doing everything for the glory of God, and that's like the AMDG, again, the Jesuit motto. Um, but even like Saint Ignatius, I am like Ignatian spirituality's biggest fan. But the idea, again, another mind-blowing thing, which probably like isn't that mind-blowing, but like inviting God into all things. And like not just like showing up to Sunday mass or to adoration and like praying the whole time, or like not just like making sure that I pray before every meal before I go to bed, but like inviting God to like come with me in the everyday, in my job, in the conversations that I have with other people, in my commute from here to the gym. Just all these things that like God wants to be a part of. And so that felt really foreign to me. Yes, I prayed to God and it was like, but God is over here. Like, I'm going to do my thing. I'll talk to you later.
Mhm.
Thanks, love you, bye. And then I would just like go about my day. Um, but to really like consider that I can offer up whatever I'm doing and bring God along with me. And like he cares about that stuff. Um and that was like a really big thing with like my job too, because I am an analyst at an insurance company. And so I look at Excel for 7.5 hours out of the day. um and like that's really boring and really not a good time. And it's funny because like I get really bored and really distracted very easily. And I like now I pray and I'm like, God, be with me as I start my day, as I start running these reports, like remind me that you are near. And just like anytime that I would like think about God, whether or not even just think about God, but like have a moment of pause in whatever I'm doing, I would just reach out, talk to him and be like, God, like I know you're with me, remind me that you're with me. Just like little things like that. To really change the way, honestly, that I live my life. Prayer couldn't just be like a last minute thing that I thought about at the end of the day because I had to, but that like God really cared to hear about me and that would foster and better my relationship with God. Just in little everyday things that I felt silly and like God doesn't care about this, but like he does. Like he cares about the little things. And we see that in, again, the saints too, of just like being faithful and whatever it was. I think especially like I'm inspired by a lot of the young saints too, because like I don't know, you read the story of a soul and it's like, holy cow, like how is this person so holy? And it's just because like that was their life. Like their whole focus was like to live their life in communion with God.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I oftentimes, so I'll think about the verse that says you'll give an account for every careless word you say. And I know that's more of a warning, but I think even to think on that in light of maybe the positive flip side of that too, that like yeah, when you're sitting around in your house and it's a boring Tuesday night, like God does absolutely care about that. And then to think too on the fact that scripture tells us that God counts the number of hairs on your head, that there are no things that are too small that God's like, I don't care about. And I have a similar feeling to what you just described in Protestantism. Everyone would always say it was a bad thing, and we all strived. Uh, maybe both of those work, but
Okay.
we would all try to live the faith Monday through Saturday, but it was really hard. But I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. But since coming into the Catholic Church, makes it it makes it much easier for me to say no. I can live my faith even when I'm laying down in bed at 10:30 at night getting ready to go to sleep or whatever, or when I wake up and I'm eating breakfast on a Saturday and there's not much going on. That's I can live my faith there, and God wants me to. And even in those areas that don't seem like they matter, they absolutely do, and God cares about them. And he can use those things if we allow him to. And if we I feel like the buzzword is offer it up, but
I know. I felt like I was trying not to say it too much.
yeah, I know it kind of has a I don't know. I'm newer to the Catholic. I came in January in 2021, so I've been
Okay.
here for a little while, almost 5 years now. But still, like
Yeah.
people will say it and kind of like, oh, we all know the phrase "offer it up,"
Right.
and to me, I'm like, yeah, but why are you saying that in such a negative way? Like and
I
it
think
may
it's
be,
great.
yeah, I know, and maybe it's because I didn't grow up with that, and so now I see that it's like, yeah, why are you trying to run from this? This is a great thing, But
Mhm.
I, I don't know. I love that aspect of the faith.
Yeah, I love it too. And I think people throw it out as like a joke sometimes. It's like, oh, you stubbed your toe, offer it up. So I see it in that way. But also like it was something that I didn't have for so long that like now it just felt like a lot of dots connecting for me. And it changed my relationship with God overall and like my relationship with the faith. Just knowing that suffering isn't because God is mad at me. Really simple, but like really mind blowing for
Mm.
my ex Protestant brain.
Yeah. Well, okay, so too, I have to ask you too. You've clearly done a lot of research on Saint Gemma. So, like for me and anyone else who's listening, if like where do I start? Because all of these things that you're talking about, like redemptive suffering, I really love the Seven Sorrows of Mary, and again, that's another devotion, like you were saying earlier. I wasn't going out and looking for that devotion, and honestly, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't remember how I started thinking about it or where that came up. Same thing with like Saint Charbel. That's another saint that
Yeah, I
I
love Saint
don't
Charbel.
know. I wasn't thinking about him. I wasn't looking for him, but for some, like I have a tapestry in my office with his picture, and I love that. So if I, where do I go? What kind of books or resources do you recommend?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple out there. There's The Diary of Saint Gemma, which I really love because it just like reminds me that things are really not that bad when she talks about like what she's experiencing.
Hmm.
But also her spiritual director wrote a book about her, Father Germanus. I think he might be blessed now. I forget. Um, I don't remember the name off the top of my head, and the book is in my car because I keep it in there.
Oh,
But it's a red cover and it has a picture of her on it. It's a really beautiful, in-depth, detail story of her, and he goes in about the different things. She was a mystic, and she
hmm.
received the stigmata, um, which was also another thing that I needed because I like I'm still maybe a little skeptical just because like I was a Pentecostal and so I saw a lot of things that were labeled as spiritual gifts that I had to reconcile all of that. And so things like that I just really wanted to stay away from. And of course Saint Gemma like has all these visions and like received the stigmata and I was like, great, now I have to deal with this. But it was like a really like beautiful way of like that introducing me to that side of the church when it was something that I was really closed off to for a really long time. So that's a whole nother long tangent just of how like much I appreciate her and her witness. But yes, that book by her spiritual director is probably the best one if you're trying to read about her and learn who she was.
Okay. Yeah, it's like every time you bring something up, the more I'm like, I've got to look into this saint because
Yes. Let
so
me know
the
when you do.
I will. I'm absolutely going to do that because I have a similar story with like mysticism and mystical type experiences. I've shared on my channel before that I think I've had mystical experiences, but in my time as a Protestant and even
Hmm.
as a Catholic too. But I would always be hesitant of those things because the Protestant church that I grew up in was they were cessationists, so they would say that
Yeah.
all of the spiritual gifts ended with the death of the last apostle.
Right.
So miraculous healing or speaking in tongues or anything like that, they would say all of that ended. And then if you said, "Oh, I had a vision of Saint so and so," or "I had an apparition," they would say, "Yeah, well, you just the brain is really powerful and you're
Yeah.
imagining things, right?"
Yeah.
And so even for me, even now, I still kind of have this rub of something weird will happen and I'm I don't know. I don't want to overly jump to like, oh, this was a mystical experience and now I'm a
Hmm.
mystic, right? But I I'm starting to become more and more okay with like, yeah, these things do happen. They've happened all throughout the history of the church, and especially now, like we were talking about earlier with the body of Christ that is in heaven, they are absolutely alive. And there's not this it was almost like before there was a wall between the two and it would be impossible to see or interact or anything like that. The two don't cross with each other
Right.
because it's impossible. And now being in the Catholic faith, it's more of a yeah, no, these things can happen because they are probably even more alive than we are. Um, so yeah, I man, that's so cool. I sorry, I feel like I'm getting like a giddy schoolgirl over this, but
No, I love it. And like it's funny because like you said you came from a cessationist background, but I came from like the absolute opposite end of the spectrum. And I was like after that I was like nope, I'm done. Because I saw it used in like a manipulative way and like things were just it was like over spiritualized. And so I was like I cut it off completely and it was funny my priest when I like was coming in and telling him my story and he was like oh like you know that like that stuff exists in the Catholic Church if you want me to get you connected and I was like no please like I'm done. And so I was like no, but I feel like allowing myself to learn and be open has like honestly like allowed God to like heal a part of that from my past too. And just like being open and yes like you know I feel like I believe in it that I've experienced things to a certain extent as well and just being like yeah okay like God is working in this way and will if we allow him to and also do it in a healthy way where it's not like oh every like sometimes chocolate cake is just chocolate cake, it's not everything is spiritual, you know. And so just using a lot of examples of the saints like Padre Pio, also, things like that, which I was like, no, this is really weird, but like also it's really good. It can be really good. And I didn't want anything to do with it. So to have that mind shift of that was really like special and profound for me coming from a place where I was like, nope, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want anything to do. It's like, okay, God, you're here too.
yeah, I have a friend who came into the church recently, and she was in the New Age,
Oh,
and
wow.
she
Yeah.
told me that, you know, a lot of she got kind of worried because she was saying, "Oh, she had these experiences in the New Age where she would have deceased relatives of friends and things like that that would appear to her, and but
Hmm.
she was kind of going after those things,
Right.
especially being in the New Age, and she would go, "Oh, you know, Susie, your grandmother came to me last night and told me that, you know, XYZ thing, you guys fought about this and you need to resolve it or whatever." And
Hmm.
so when she became Catholic, she wanted to get rid of all that stuff, but she was worried because she had even after becoming Catholic some like mystical type experiences, and you know, she was saying, "I just want to, like you were saying, I just want to get rid of this stuff because it's so similar to the New Age and I want to leave all of that life behind, that I
Hmm.
don't want this kind of stuff anymore." And you know, I told her kind of like you were saying, don't overanalyze everything. Don't go out and seek those things. Like, don't light candles and go, "Okay, I'm
Right.
gonna see Saint so and so tonight." You know, like that absolutely crosses a line. But if these things happen, just take them for what they are and don't overanalyze it. Don't dig for it. Don't search for it. If it happens, then these things happen, and then ask God to be with you and ask Him to, if He's trying to teach you something, just ask Him to help you learn whatever you're supposed to learn or do whatever you're supposed to do through these things. And I think that's where, I think that's what a lot of the saints who were mystics, that's kind of the mentality they would have. They weren't going, "All right, it's Tuesday. What saint's
Yes.
coming tonight?" You know,
Yeah.
they would be living their lives like they should, and these
Hmm.
things would happen, and then there would always be some sort of positive or good that would come from that. So
Yes.
yeah, I can understand the hesitation. I have the same hesitation, but on the for the opposite reasons,
Hmm.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I and I'm still not there yet. But I'm learning that, like, no, these things can be good and they can be fruitful, and we shouldn't run to them or from them, but just let them be. If they come, let them be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good, really good point of just like being open to whatever it is, but not actively searching because that was just what I was used to. But yeah, and like you said, there's always something like good that comes from it. There's always a purpose. It's not just like a fun thing that happens.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just changing how I view things has really made a big difference. And it sounds like really silly, but just I've been really on this kick of like God is the God of redemption, and like he like will redeem little things. I like posted a little stupid reel tonight about like my neighbor's mom giving me a Christmas pot holder because I'm like on this mission to like reclaim Christmas. But just like how like sweet that was, and like it was a little tiny thing that's like making a big difference. And so how God is redeeming my life in the small areas. And so even in areas like that where I came from a place that was so charismatic, over spiritualized everything, and how God has like redeemed that to be like, no, this is good. When it's mine, it's good. When it's not mine, it's not. But just like recognizing that, and that's what like really anything is, right? Like anytime we take God out of it for our own gain, it's not good anymore because it goes against what he's created it and given it to us for.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool. Sorry to run off on that tangent,
Oh,
but you
it's always
mentioned
good.
it, and yeah, that was another. I was like, oh my gosh, there's another thing. So again, there's too many coincidences for this saint, for me personally. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna pick up those books. Yeah, I think that your story is really neat. I really like how and you can recognize too all these little things that add up, and these things are way more than just happenstance or coincidence or anything like that. Yeah, so I would agree with your friend that I think Saint Gemma absolutely picked you, and I think this happens to more people. I think this happens more times than not.
Oh, for sure. And I think too, it's really funny because I don't know, last week maybe I was sitting there and I was like, God, why don't you listen to me? Like, I always ask for these things and they don't happen. And like, it's all these like big things. I'm like wanting God to like make this big change in my life for whatever reason. And I'm expecting that because God does big things and God is good and he wills, good things for us. And I'm like, God, are you even listening? And it's funny because that is something that would be like tangible and right in front of me and could be like, yes, it is. But when I take a step back and I look at the little tiny things that have like woven all together, I'm like, okay, God, like maybe you're teaching me something here. Maybe you are here and there is good things and I just need to like chill out and surrender to your will. But I mean, I still struggle. I still go around. Like I said, this was like last week. I've been a Catholic for a year and a half at this point. I'm good, don't worry. But like, just like I still question, and I'm like, are you even listening to me? And he is, and he's there in like the little moments, and that is what I need because I need to take a step back and recognize that instead of just giving like the instant gratification or like the big moment that I want, to see that like God is with me. And that's another part of like inviting him into my daily life is to like seeing the little moments that are really everywhere. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, awesome. This has been great. I'm really glad that you came on. Even I mean,
yeah,
I hope everyone who's watching has enjoyed it. But even for me personally, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So
yeah, it's been good.
yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, thank you.